Welcome to SDGs in Action, real-world examples of sustainable business practices. This podcast series is hosted by the UN Global Compact Network Canada, where we break down the Sustainable Development Goals into actionable and achievable items in a Canadian context through case studies and narrative-driven conversations with subject matter experts. My name is Elizabeth Dove, Executive Director of the UN Global Compact Network Canada, and I'm delighted to be hosting today's episode with a combined focus on SDG 2, Zero Hunger, SDG 6, Clean Water and Sanitation, and SDG 13, Climate Action. Before we delve into today's topic, I'd like to acknowledge our sponsor, Element Fleet Management. Their support is pivotal for this series. Element Fleet Management offers comprehensive fleet solutions from vehicle acquisition to fleet electrification. Their focus on efficiency and sustainability has made them a global leader in their field. For more information, visit their website at www.elementfleet.com. Now let's turn our attention to today's conversation, where we will be covering topics of food security, water retention, and carbon credits, as well as digital sustainability solutions and innovative practices in the business of agriculture and crop production. The global population is expected to reach 10 billion by the year 2050. Food, fiber, and fuel are all products of agriculture that are basic needs for everyone. The global challenge of food security is amplified by wars and inflation, and there is growing pressure on agriculture to produce more food with less resources. With us today as guest speaker is Nutrien's own Vice President of Sustainability and Stakeholder Relations, Tim Fabry. Tim is a seasoned business and sustainability executive with over 25 years of experience. Prior to joining Nutrien, he embedded sustainability and shared value at Maple Leaf Foods, enabling the company to become the first major carbon-neutral food company in 2019. Welcome, Tim. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me.
Tim, before we get started into all our questions about SDGs, can you first tell us a little bit about the work Nutrien does?
Sure. So Nutrien isn't a big household name. I'll give you the 30-second elevator pitch. We're an international agriculture company with manufacturing operations in nitrogen, potash, phosphorus fertilizers, but also 2,000 retail locations across North America, South America, and Australia. That vertical integrated model with direct access to farmers makes us unique. We make the claim that we are the world's largest crop input provider in the world. Our purpose is feeding the future, and that starts with the soil beneath our feet and the global challenge of feeding nearly 10 billion people by the year 2050, as you mentioned. And that connection with growers is big. It's over 500,000 growers in the regions where we operate to help increase food production sustainably and for generations to come.
Well, the alignment with Zero Hunger seems pretty obvious, and we're so glad to have you and your inputs today. So tell us a little bit more about Nutrien's commitment and alignments with SDG 2, Zero Hunger.
Sure. So, our overall sustainability efforts, they ripple through many of the goals, but we've selected priority indicators that were most relevant to our stakeholders and our business. And the extent to which a topic or issue can be influenced by our organization. So we are uniquely positioned to support SDG 2, obviously Zero Hunger through sustainable and productive agriculture. And by the year 2030, we've committed to enable growers to adopt sustainable and productive agriculture practices and products on over 75 million acres globally. As an example, in 2022 alone, we measured and documented approximately 1 million acres in North America and Australia that have moved to those practices.
Tim, though, that's amazing and really, really ambitious, important goals that your organization has put forward. So how does Nutrien measure and track progress towards its influence on the global goals? And are there specific metrics or indicators that you focus on?
Yeah, sure. So, our pathway towards the SDGs actually started back in 2009. Wasn't with the organization, but they had a focus on the Millennium Development Goals. And so when the SDG came out, the organization was already familiar. They formed an internal SDG committee. And one of the first tasks of that committee was to complete an in-depth review of all the 669 indicators, understand which ones we could influence. We got leadership support and framed our global sustainability strategy around the Sustainable Development Goals, somewhat like a big picture global agenda. And our 2030 commitments and ESG targets are direct results of understanding those goals and our unique influence, risks, and opportunities. So we publish an annual SDG impact assessment report. We assess our priority SDGs based on those indicators that we can influence. And we also identify challenges and opportunities and showcase the initiatives that help drive each one forward. So our ESG report is complementary to that, and that's another place where we disclose our progress against the goals. And to back all that up, what I'm very proud of Nutrien has in place is an internal data management system that was developed by our internal group called OneSource. It's the one source of all of our sustainability commitments, targets, and goals. There's dashboards so that our leaders can review progress against the real-time data. So that's a big enabler for us to be such a robust reporter.
Wow, that's really impressive. I love that you have that internal system with so many eyes on it. I also really love that you have an SDG specific report that complements your ESG report. Can you provide some examples, Tim, of successful initiatives or projects Nutrien has undertaken to contribute to the advancement of SDG 2?
Lots of opportunities and initiatives. So first and foremost, to support our 75 million acre target, we've developed a farmer-facing program focused on carbon. It is super important that we keep our biggest customer, the farmer, at the center of our programming. And this carbon program is based following greenhouse gas protocols, identifying agricultural feed level data, and evidence available to support the farmer to measure, track, and validate progress with respect to generating high-quality sustainability outcomes with respect to carbon. So over the last number of years, there's been a lot of opportunities for farmers to implement advanced soil and nutrient management practices that can result in increased yield and resiliency to their businesses and have an opportunity to positively impact climate change. So our focus has been working with those growers, and our carbon program does just that. And we have pathways for outcomes that both involve carbon offsets on the regulated and voluntary markets, and carbon insets as well. And I'm happy to communicate that just this year, we've received validation of our carbon program methodology and framework by an independent organization that supports the Science-Based Targets Initiative and the Value Chain Initiative called SustainCert. And this is just the first step for us to enable more value chain collaboration within the food system in Canada. We've also produced certified Scope 1 voluntary offsets on nitrogen management approved and certified by the Climate Action Reserve. So basically, that carbon program really is a gateway or tip of the spear, let's say, because carbon is just one aspect that farmers can influence. if we can focus on soil health and these kinds of agricultural practices, not only do they influence positive carbon outcomes, but we're seeing water outcomes and biodiversity outcomes as well through the work that we're doing.
Element delivers a comprehensive supplier diversity strategy, including a network of over 4,800 diverse suppliers.
Partnering with Element is partnering for diversity and partnering for something bigger.
Learn more at elementfleet.com.
Welcome back. Now that some of the groundwork has been laid out regarding Nutrien's sustainability commitments, now let's discuss some of Nutrien's digital solutions for sustainability. So Tim, could you elaborate on the role that innovation plays in advancing SDG 2, Zero Hunger, and what is the current reach of Nutrien's digital solutions amongst farmers and growers?
Sure, that's a great question. I think digital overall is a great enabler for sustainability right across the board. It's critical as it relates to SDG2 in feeding this growing world population on the same amount of land or even less land with limited natural resources. So, there's amazing work going on in innovation with seeds, with nutrients, water technology, equipment such as used in precision agriculture techniques, transportation, storage, and distribution. All these play a role before food even reaches the grocery store. So it's going to be a really important enabler. And that one area is digital solutions that we've adopted to help helping farmers and throughout the whole agronomic cycle.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for outlining that for us. Tim, how is the technology that Nutrien has adapted and the digital solutions provided helping farmers throughout its value chain?
Another good question. So, for example, precision agriculture uses digital agronomy and technology, including GPS, geospatial data processing, and this allows growers to provide and apply kind of like a prescription and a very precise seeding and fertilization regime, considering the variability in their fields, right? So our crop advisors work with these growers to create precise maps, and because it's science-driven, they have confidence to make better decisions in both planning and execution of their crop inputs. And that really provides best results in combining local knowledge that the farmer has with actual actionable data. And these tool sets enhance as well traceability and connectivity that can be used to measure environmental impacts and outcomes. That is really one of the biggest requests of the value chain downstream of the farmer. So retailers and food manufacturers that want to have influence and promote action on climate, for example, in their supply chain. This is the start of that. This is, the base of data that farmers can draw from. So these digital solutions also include soil testing and other technologies to measure these impacts. And then we can recommend customized solutions to the grower. And then, of course, with their permission, if they're included in a value chain collaboration, share outcomes based on that. So by tracking and measuring things like soil health, water, carbon, yield, and eventually biodiversity, it's not there yet, those outcomes all support those value chain collaborations, and then allow each value chain actor to make claims, credible claims of their own to support sustainability.
Tim, I'm actually learning so much about farming through this conversation, modern day farming, and the way you're really helping farmers to, yes, be able to make those sustainability comments on there, and I mentioned about how partnership seems really so important to Nutrien's work, but really it is also the partner that you are to the farmers, which I can see is offering a ton of value to them. So when we're talking about the new digital platforms and data analytics, how are they supporting Nutrien's sustainability agenda?
Well, that just makes us better crop consultants and agronomists to our customers. It helps us benchmark, validate claims, and get that precise recipe to share with the farmer and make them more successful. So it's really, data is power, right? And it allow us to share an individual farmer's performance back to them to help them improve. And what's great is that when you think of a very large farm in Western Canada, for example, farms are divided up into fields, which are divided up into acres, and each one is different. So we can map their performance by the acre, and that really allows them to make better informed decisions of how they want to grow their crops and run their business.
Wow, that's really impressive. Tim, what are some of the challenges or barriers in Nutrien's journey towards sustainable development? And how has the company addressed or overcome them?
Well, that's a really good question. Certainly, sustainability and agriculture rely on understanding, the variety of economic, social, and environmental challenges and opportunities to create a balance for the entire system. So we can't solve climate change, for example, if it means restricting growers' ability to produce food. This is a ripple effect that might increase hunger and poverty if we, for example, impose strict nitrogen reductions for them right across the board. So the world needs to strike a balance between choosing between food security and climate. They're not independent. We have to solve them together, right? There's lots of pressure increasing and being pushed down on agriculture to grow more food with less natural resources and the same amount of land. So from a real grower-centric perspective again, most growers have 1 or 2 crops per year. They're lucky if they get 2 crops per year. And we're not including greenhouses here, and there's a lot of variables at stake. We've talked about them: water, pests, disease, weather, equipment reliability. Another one that we haven't talked about that really influences the economic side of a farming operation is labor as well. And then the capital that a farmer is going to need to reinvest into their operations for future generations as well. So it's really interesting. Last year, the World Economic Forum released a report. And again, it's kind of focused on innovation again. And here's a quote. I'm just going to read it for you here. There's been an explosion of innovations in the food and agriculture space in the last decade. However, it's been a challenge to quickly achieve large-scale adoption of sustainable and productive practices, inputs, and technologies. Academic research shows that adopting complex new agricultural practices can take 20 years or more. Adopting agricultural practices, inputs, and technologies accelerates when the 4 A's of adoption are in place: awareness, advantage, access, and affordability. So that being said, there's a great focus on innovation to support farmers and to be more sustainable. But I think we also have to remember, and I think one of the biggest challenges here is that you can't rush Mother Nature. Crops need certain things to grow. Food needs time to grow, and results just don't happen within months. It takes years for these things to adapt and to be put in place. So we have to remember that not every innovation we can adopt. It takes time, but more so, it needs to be customized. It needs to be local. It needs to be specific, affordable, and then considered right across the value chain.
Thanks for highlighting those complexities.
ARC by Element brings deep sustainability expertise to clients worldwide. Our tailored end-to-end electric vehicle solutions support your goals to reduce emissions. Learn more at elementfleet.com/ARC.
Welcome back, everyone. I would now like to pivot my conversation with Tim Fabry of Nutrien to expand a little bit more on Nutrien's practice of inclusion, diversity, and collaboration towards the achievement of SDG 2 Zero Hunger. So, Tim, how has the value of collaborative work influenced the success of Nutrien's programs?
Yeah, it's a really great question. Obviously, inclusion is key to sustainability. It's actually a core value of our organization. And our collaboration with growers and all the other value chain partners that we're working with is foundational to our efforts to be successful as we continue to build and scale sustainability programs moving forward.
Thanks. So, Tim, according to Nutrien's impact assessment, in 2022, you supported almost 200 food-related organizations. Amazing. Could you expand on the types of charities and nonprofits Nutrien partners with and your efforts in communities?
Sure. So we're a big company, global, as you know. In 2022, we invested just about $33 million to over 3,000 community partners.
Wow.
The regions where we operate. Lots of investments in advancing sustainable agriculture and food solutions, environmental stewardship, and as well, equity, diversity, and inclusion, like we were just talking about. So we maintain support for food security initiatives around the world, reaching, as you said, over 200 food agencies, and that was across 7 different countries. So food banks, school meal and education programs, and organizations that deliver school garden programs and youth education to learn how to grow their own food. Those are just a few examples of the kind of capacity building that we try to achieve.
Fantastic. The success of reaching SDG 2 is also dependent on the overlap with other SDGs. And I feel like in some ways you illustrated that a couple of questions ago with the complexity and the connection to things like to labor, to climate, to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And these things, of course, support community development, collaboration, DEI. Can you tell us about Nutrien's Radical Inclusion Challenge? What a great name.
Yeah, sure. The Radical Inclusion Challenge presented by Nutrien is actually a pitch competition. We partnered with a venture capital group where we invest as an organization $1.5 million in 2 top global ag tech startups that are actually from underrepresented groups in agriculture. These top 4 finalists, it's kind of like a Shark Tank, right? So the top 4 finalists gets together. They share their business strategy to a panel of judges. This year, it's going to be at the Women's Agribusiness Summit on September 28th. Judges select the top 2 winners, and each receives $750,000 plus mentorship from both Radical and Nutrien as well. And it's a super important program for us because overall we feel that agriculture isn't as diverse as other industries, and it allows us to really focus on underrepresented groups and providing a laneway for success in agriculture.
That's amazing. That's really some considerable contribution and great way to seed, pardon the pun, I'm sure you get these all the time, the future of sustainable and innovative agriculture with underrepresented groups really taking the fore. Wonderful. So what benefits did the competition bring for communities in past years, including their impact on female entrepreneurs and underrepresented communities?
Mm-hmm. So, our inclusion challenges focuses on less than 3% of U.S. venture capital invested in underrepresented entrepreneurs, right? And this has been helpful to unpack insights and challenges faced by the BIPOC community, Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Women as well, founders across all industries in venture capital, raised less than 2% of U.S. deployed venture capital in 2022. And BIPOC groups only accounted for just under 1%, respectively. So this challenge really aims to address these diverse groups in agriculture and attracting venture capital that they could not otherwise access, right? And so when we look at data from our 2022 inclusion challenge, that highlighted to us that founders from these underrepresented groups, they typically lack the resources, the mentors, and the capital that they need to get their ideas into the practice and into the marketplace. Surveys that we did as well, and Radical did, identified that over 70% of founders of underrepresented groups felt unprepared to launch their startups, compared to just around 50% of traditional founders. And about 55% of ag-related graduates are female, yet women only make up 35% of the world's of the workforce in ag companies. So there's some disconnects there, right? And so the data highlights the need for the industry to continue to really focus on and address diversity and inclusion in agriculture. And I think every year we learn more about this important topic, and it's certainly a commitment that we're going to follow through on.
So Tim, looking ahead, what gaps still exist, and what are the plans, goals, and expectations for the next generation of agricultural business?
Yeah, great question, Elizabeth. We talked a lot about the agriculture value chain or the food system, and I think I have to reiterate that the need for collaboration is essential on some really important pieces of the puzzle. This would include ensuring a grower-centric or a farmer-centric models in place. Farmers are the frontline workers producing food for the world. And they're managing their land in a very environmentally sustainable way, and their livelihoods depend on that. So it's critical that they're consulted and involved in any of these big changes that might affect them. There also needs to be co-investment in shared priorities and sustainability goals and initiatives. So co-investment by all value chain actors, including government, industry, nonprofit, academics, and science, so that the impacts that we can make can be resilient and last longer. That would include financial incentives and rewards for the growers. Farmers and growers are entrepreneurial by nature, right? And so they don't expect handouts, but it needs to be part of considerations for profitability, for practice change, like any other business. It's a value proposition and a business case. If any of that's unclear, or the risks are too high, farmers aren't going to participate, and value chain actors really need to step in and help mitigate that risk. Lots more like advocating and piloting locally and sharing globally. On advocation, it really needs to be done at a global level with governments and policymakers. They need to understand the science of agriculture, the emissions factors if it's related to climate, and then how adoption of new technology and practices are employed, and data that relates to data collection and analytics to ensure that we're working on the right things and reporting out our progress. And then, lastly, timelines are important too, right? We've set hard goals on sustainable development, timelines on sustainable development goals. And with each passing growing season, the population is continuing to grow. Climate impacts are continuing to be felt, right? And so the pressures are going to continue to increase. So we can't wait another 30 years for the next agricultural evolution. We really need to be acting soon and now.
I really appreciate you bringing into focus the farmer-centric approach. And I can see how Nutrien plays a really valuable role in sort of bridging that farmer policy piece, because it's all really part and parcel. I also really appreciate your emphasis on there is no time to waste. I mean, certainly at the UN Global Compact, we are feeling the effects of being halfway through the 2030 agenda and some real distance to go. It's part of the reason that in the fall, we will be introducing a new program called Forward Faster. So back to language that really puts forward our imperative to be working collaboratively faster together. As we're getting near the end of this episode, Tim, I'd like to highlight one last initiative of Nutrien's that I think sounds really interesting by the name. You've got some great names in your initiatives. Could you please explain what the Farmers 2050 game is all about?
Sure. Farmers 2050 started in schools as a curriculum-based program called Journey 2050. And the Farmers 2050 game is a free game where players can discover what it really takes to feed the world. Okay, so the game is based on real agriculture and addresses the complex nature and topics of feeding the growing population. It was created as a public version of the school program that anyone could play and learn about agriculture. Both Farmers 2050 and Journey 2050 teach about agriculture, use gamification, and makes the education more engaging, immersive, and hopefully ultimately effective. So, the details are around the game allows the players to plant crops, raise animals, craft goods, and sell to their local community. And along the way, real farmers across the world show students what they're doing on their farms.
Wow.
As players also explore the food sustainability, for example. They make decisions, and then they can see the ripple effect of those decisions on their overall sustainability. We've also inputted global events tied to the SDGs. They appear, and players must work together to address those challenges. And so every often, charitable donations are highlighted that support the global challenges in real life. And it's a super successful program. So since 2017, Farmers 2050 has actually rolled out to over 500,000 unique players around the world. It's been downloaded over 500,000 times. So we're really proud of that. And we think that even leveraging technology and innovation and a network of global stakeholders, all this is going to play a critical role in feeding 10 billion people by 2050.
That's amazing. I feel like I could really learn a lot by taking on the Farmers 2050. Yeah. Is that available to anyone to download?
Yes.
Oh, amazing. And this, the world of gamification, it seems like really the work that Nutrien does and what you're trying to educate the general public to understand is really ripe for this digital download. There's another terrible pun. Does that just keep happening in your work? It's just me, obviously. Before we wrap up, Tim, and I really appreciate your time with us today, could you please share with our listeners your top 3 takeaways or critical points that you want to make sure they remember from our conversation?
Sure. At the highest level, obviously, feeding the world is one of these, or could be the biggest societal challenge that the world is facing right now. It's going to take innovation and certainly a lot of collaboration. And that's going to be key to an overall sustainable future for the planet. These sustainable solutions really need to scale and quickly, as we've discussed. And if we go right back to, the overall underlying definition of sustainability and thinking about future generations, these programs and outcomes that we're working on in the value chain and the food system really need to be economically viable, have positive environmental and social outcomes and benefits, and really need to be science-based and substantiated by science. And I think if we kind of bring all those together, I'm hoping and being very positive about it that we're going to have success over time.
Tim, thank you again so much for joining us today. And thank you to your colleagues at Nutrien and your collaborators who are all working together to address SDG 2, Zero Hunger, and make sure that this growing world has nutritious sources of sustainable food.
Thanks so much for having me.
To all of our listeners, we hope that you found today's episode informative and engaging. Please note that any research specifically mentioned in our conversations today will be linked in the description section of this episode if you want to read more for yourselves. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast to stay updated for future episodes that cover the Sustainable Development Goals. And if you have any feedback or questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. If your company is interested in joining the UN Global Compact Network Canada to advance your sustainability goals, please also reach out to us with inquiries. Our contact information can be found on our website at www.unglobalcompact.ca, and will also be linked in the description box of this episode. Before we wrap up, again, a special thank you to our sponsor, Element Fleet Management. Their comprehensive services from fleet management to electrification not only maximize efficiency, but also contribute to a more sustainable future. Find out more about their commitment to sustainability and services at elementfleet.com. Thank you for tuning in, and please share this podcast with your network so that together we can create a more sustainable and equitable future. Till next time.